Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another AI news show. Today, myself and my co-host, Kevin Kieller, will be talking to author and innovator Elizabeth Bieniek about innovation and the value of artificial intelligence, hot on the heels of a recent report published by Boston Consulting Group that revealed that only 26% of companies are generating value from AI projects, and an astounding 4% of companies are creating substantial or scalable value from AI. So hold on to your seats for a really good discussion. Kevin, how's things?
Well, things are going fantastically, Rob. It's great to be back with you, and I'm very much looking forward to talking with Elizabeth today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got to behind the curtain, but first of all, let's talk about this report, because I thought it was quite interesting. We'll start there because it was really in line with today's conversation, Kevin, as you know. But I mean, first of all, let's talk about the AI maturity gap here. I mean, only 26% of companies have moved beyond proof of concept with AI, goes this report, and just 4% are realizing substantial value. What's all that about?
Yeah, I think that's kind of a bit of a negative spin on it. Obviously AI, and specifically generative AI, we've seen a huge explosion of that. And so it's very new to many companies. If we look at it in a positive way, you've got, as you said, there was 4% that have what the report Boston Consulting Group says are value engines. So they're extracting huge value from AI. They've kind of figured out the secret sauce. The 22% are still scaling it. So they've figured out a use case that's working, and now they're ramping it up. And then there truthfully was 49% that are still doing proof of concept. So I think the jury's still out on that 49%. The thing that stood out for me actually was the 25% that are doing little or nothing. Like, what are you thinking? Because, I think on our last episode, we had Gurdeep Singh Paul, and he spoke about how 3 years from now, the companies that are going to be the winning companies are the ones that are starting, today. And so that 25%, those companies, if you're not doing anything or exploring, Gen AI or AI, you probably aren't going to be winning 3 years from now.
Yeah, why is it so difficult for companies to scale AI? What do you think the kind of biggest barriers are right now for organizations?
Well, I think that, there's been a lot written about this, specifically I make the distinction between building your own AI model. That's really where, having data, clean data, eliminating bias, then having the compute infrastructure, which, this is where, there are these multi-million, $100 million investments to train your own model. So I think that is a significant undertaking, and organizations really need to go big or go home. I think the BCG report said the people that are really winning in that 4%, they made big bets, right? They also set, ambitious, like let's save $1 billion times kind of goals. So that AI is difficult. I think leveraging Gen AI, where you're using somebody else's trained large language model, that's significantly easier. And so I think a lot has been written and they conflate the two, but, go use Gen AI because it's relatively easy. Building your own AI model, you need resources and also the skills gap. You need data scientists and really smart people, and there's not a lot of them out there.
Yeah, and they are expensive, aren't they, these people? And
Yes.
So you've got to have the budget. There was a really interesting section around value creation in core processes. AI value is kind of more. It said AI value is more often generated in core functions. So that's 62% of AI value,
Right.
such as operations and sales, rather than support functions. So I found that quite interesting. What do you think to that?
Yeah, I think that's good. Before I dive into that, just, this is really the third in-depth AI focused report from Boston Consulting Group. So if you're interested in what we're saying, go back and look. The first one identified real quickly that creative processes was where Gen AI helped more than, mathematical processes. The second one report really identified the fact that Gen AI, if you have a base of knowledge, it can extend your capabilities. If you don't know anything about an area, it probably can just fool you and get you into trouble. And then this report, I think this is the key takeaway that you're highlighting, which is core processes, which they did define as operations, sales and marketing, R&D, which I think will tie into our innovation discussion, and supply chain is really where people are extracting value. I thought that was interesting because a lot of the discussion in marketing and vendor, speak is really around the contact center in AI, which makes sense because there's lots of metrics there. And I do want to note that depending on the industry, they did consider like customer service as part of your core function. And so, but I think what this was saying is, when you're trying to identify a use case, like operations and operational efficiency, that's a good place to at least test a use case for AI. I found that interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. It did feel like a slight contradiction in terms, I suppose, around kind of automating. Everyone thinks, it's all about automating low-level tasks in support roles. But yeah, like you say, in contact centers and that kind of thing. But it's interesting, isn't it? Maybe it's gaining traction. And certainly I hear that executives are getting more and more value out of AI than most people. Have you heard that as well? I think it was mentioned in a report.
Yeah, that part of it, I wasn't sure if it's like the executives are getting value because it's, value for the organization as a whole or, kind of for, the shareholder community. What I like about this report is it's just really going deep in terms of, and industry specific, where people are winning and where they're finding the use case. Because I've been to lots of presentations where people say, go out and find the use case, which is great. But if you don't know where to start, I think that this, report gives you some ideas, at least where other organizations in your sector have been able to, extract value from AI and Gen AI.
Yeah, and that's a nice segue into my last question on this, I suppose, is that kind of impact on industries and, specific use cases for industries. I mean, some sectors like fintech and biopharma and telecom have had higher success rates in realizing AI value, according to the report. What do you think to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. Like if you look at biopharma, I mean, they were, getting a lot of value out of the R&D side, which, with, AlphaFold and protein folding and just the ability to advance some of the medical, the medical area. I think that seems like a use case where those organizations would try it, and not surprisingly, they are extracting value. I think in fintech, and especially they called out, the insurance and the F&I, grouping, there's a lot of things like, claims processing, underwriting. These seem like things where there's a complicated decision making, and by being able to do that more quickly, it seems like that's a good place to find value, and indeed they are finding value. In telecom, I think that is one of the industries where they said a core function was, customer service, I guess just because of all the plans or billing disputes or what have you. So that, that is a little bit, I think the contact center piece and AI is something that's showing up there. I think what the key takeaway, that I had as well, which is, okay, find the use case. It's going to vary by industry. So it does take hard work. And then, they really did call out, and I really like this, focus more on the people and process as opposed to the technology and algorithms. I think all of us in technology, the new shiny thing is very exciting from a technology perspective. But AI, first of all, it's new. And like all technologies, the change management, the communications, the training, that people and process piece is really what's going to, make you successful as opposed to just focusing and fixating on the technology. So I like that the BCG report, called that out as a key success factor.
Yeah, absolutely. Really interesting report. We're going to put a link in the description for that as well. So down below, have a look for that. It's ungated, so you can just click straight into the PDF. It's a really good read. And if you haven't got much time, drop it into AI and get the headlines that way. So anyways, moving on. Kevin, the AI Minute. What is today's keyword or phrase?
Yeah, so today's keyword is zero shot learning. And I know, Rob, ahead of time, you didn't know what that was. So what that is that is really the ability to recognize objects or concepts without ever having seen examples. So this is important for training of large language models. Sometimes when you see the evaluation of large language models, they'll say, this is how it did, it'll say zero shot, or maybe it says one shot, multi-shot. Once again, here's an example of this. You could, for instance, train an object identification model to recognize horses. So you feed it images of horses. This is a horse. This is not a horse. But in addition, you provided additional attributes for different classes of objects. So for instance, the model could then potentially identify a zebra based on the fact that it's never seen a zebra before, but you've told it that a zebra looks like a striped horse. And why this is important is because it helps models, language models and object identification models recognize things that they haven't seen. So you can imagine for translation, you say, hey, translate this phrase from English to French or English to Italian or what have you. It may not have been trained on that exact phrase. And how does a large language model do this? Well, it is because it can use its general knowledge plus an understanding of attributes to be able to do that. So that's, super important. As well, zero shot learning is used to help in conservation in terms of, identifying new species. It's never seen this particular, animal. Maybe nobody's taken a picture of it, but it knows because it's seen similar animals and has descriptions of what this new species looks like. And also diagnosing rare diseases is an area where zero shot learning can help. And this really is in contrast to what they call one shot or few shot learning, where you train a model by showing it a few examples of a particular object or give it a particular phrase, and then say, hey, can we do it without a large training set? So this is zero shot learning, and that's your AI Minute for today.
Thanks, Kevin. I mean, that blows my mind. How does it, we've talked about hallucination, but how does it fact check? It just digs deeper into its archives. Is that that's what you said, isn't it? It kind of, that's what a large language model does. It kind of to fact check that against
that's a great question, Rob. I think it uses a combination of what it's trained on and then the additional attributes that are extracted. And then, in terms of how does it fact check? This is what's called a soft prediction. So a model can make a hard prediction where it says, I know that this is a horse because I've seen a million other horses. And then it says, this is a soft prediction. I've seen a million horses. You told me a zebra looked like a striped horse. I understand stripes. I understand this looks like a horse. Here's my soft prediction. It's a zebra. And, this is the first time I've seen it. So that's in general how it works. It's obviously super more sophisticated than that.
I can imagine, but that's enough for me. So thank you for explaining that. Brilliant. Okay, well, moving on. Let's talk to our special guest today, Elizabeth Bieniek. I'd like to welcome you to the show. Welcome, Elizabeth. How's it going?
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Kevin. Great to be here.
Well, thanks for joining us. Your new book, Cake on Tuesday, explores lessons in innovation based on your experience leading the team at Cisco that created the WebEx hologram solution, which is really interesting. I know we can talk about that for a while, but maybe not today. But perhaps a good place to start today is just to kind of define what you see as innovation and tell us a little bit about yourself and your story.
Sure. I feel like part of my mission right now is demystifying innovation, because I feel like it's one of those fancy words we like to throw around and house it inside of corporate strategy or inside the Ivy League and say, oh, only certain people can do innovation. So if nothing else, I would like to take some of that pump away from it and make it a little bit more accessible. Because when you break it down, innovation is really just doing something new or doing something old in a new way. And it's that simple. So you can be innovative in your process, in your approach, in the way you coach your people. It doesn't have to be just about tech, and it doesn't have to be so hands-off.
Yeah, no,
That's a really good point.
that's very, very interesting. And obviously, I mean, you know, innovation and AI, they go together because with AI, people are looking and, this whole report looked at, okay, can you do, similar things in a different way? Now, in your book, I mean, you have, I think, 25 lessons on innovation, so we won't go through all of them, but one of the ones that you really focus on is, some lessons on picking the right team and empowering the team. Um, you don't specifically talk about artificial intelligence, but from a team perspective, how do you see AI being part of the team? Does it help or hurt? Because we're now seeing some industry analysts that are saying, with the focus being so much on AI, everything else is being overshadowed. So how do you see AI helping or hurting a team that's trying to be innovative?
Yeah, absolutely. I think AI is a great tool, but I'm aware of the title of this show, so I don't want to say too much, but I figured we would talk about AI a little bit today. But the first chapter in my book is Be Disagreeable. So I have to say AI is not the answer to everything. It's not the answer to life, the universe, and everything. We already know that's 42. So I think when we're looking at AI, if you look at it as a tool and not the answer, then it opens up a lot more possibilities. If you use it as a way to enable your team to do more or do more quickly, then I think AI can definitely help things like idea generation. So much of brainstorming or brainswarming is really riffing off of each other. And the ability for AI to go through content and come up with new combinations in record speed is amazing and really good in that brainstorming light. But if you go into it with no content, no ideas, and just say, AI, give me the answer, that's not going to work so well. So I've used it historically with teams. I've used it now even just thinking about, I didn't use it in the writing of my book at all. I'll throw that disclaimer in there. But thinking about what content I create beyond that, or what are new ways to combine existing content that I have, AI is fantastic for that. If you think of it as a brainstorming partner, I think that works really well. Anytime you use it to replace the human connection or the humanity of your team or how the complex inner dynamics of your team, you can't just gloss over those things and jump to, well, what's the answer from AI? It only works if you are enhancing what's already there. The structure has to be there already.
Yeah, I mean that seems consistent with that BCG report where it's like if you've got the basis, it can kind of augment you. It can expand a little bit. But if you're starting with nothing, as you say, if you bring no ideas and expect AI to step up and start just like fill in all of the gaps, that's problematic.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, we're a creative business. We generate stories, we generate marketing material, and we use AI, I suppose, more individually at the moment to take transcripts from interviews, to generate headlines, subtitles, just variations, generate ideas, right? So it's all about, creativity, innovation, I suppose, is that the same thing? And, in terms of teams going forward, do you see kind of like a generative AI assistant playing a real part of the actual team itself, as opposed to just a co-pilot on an individual? What do you think?
Yeah, I think you can definitely plug it into a team dynamic and not just an individual component. But again, if you're looking at it as one more arrow in your quiver, if you will, one more tool that you have, then I think that adds a lot of potential. And part of going into this whole realm of AI is we don't know what we don't know. We're still in that exploratory phase. We're definitely, I would say, at the top of the hype cycle when it comes to AI, but we're not at the top of understanding how we can use it and apply it. So I think trying it in a lot of different areas and seeing what works and what doesn't, making quick pivots, I think there's an incredible potential there for it to be a part of your team, because you can't go in and say, well, here's the areas AI can help and here's the areas it can't. We don't know that yet. So being open to being surprised, I think is very important. I think that's important when it comes to people. You don't want to put your people in a box. When you're engaging with somebody, you don't say, Rob can only add this value and Kevin can only add this value, and that's all they will ever add in the future. It's very limiting. And I think the same approach, if we look at, we can use AI in this capacity, but not this one. We don't know that yet. We still need to explore and try, and we'll discover on the way.
Yeah, that is a great point, and yeah, I think we're in that exploratory. That's why I take, Rob, that 49% that are still in proof of concept. They're still doing the experiments, and I think that's a good place to be, right? So, um, but talking about a bad place to be, you have a chapter in your book called "Don't Be a Flat Squirrel," and you write, the road of life is paved with flat squirrels who couldn't make a decision. Don't be a flat squirrel. Which nobody wants to be a flat squirrel. So for organizations who are looking to innovate and leverage AI for innovation, what is your key advice in terms of how to avoid being roadkill?
That chapter is based on a quote from Theodore Roosevelt, which I'm going to butcher, but it's basically the effect of the best thing you can do is the right thing, the next best thing is the wrong thing, and the worst thing is nothing.
Right.
And I think that applies to AI like it does any other fast moving or innovative area, that action trumps everything. You need to be moving forward and making quick decisions and learning. So when it comes what we were talking about a minute ago, I mean, when it comes to AI, it's no different. We, as an industry, I'll throw myself in this bucket for the tech industry overall. We like to jump on the bandwagon of the latest tech and say it's going to solve everything. If you just look back at the last decade or so, I mean, how many times do we have big data or IoT or virtual reality or 5G or smart connected communities? There was always something that this is the area, this is the way forward, this is how we need to move forward. But AI is in that bucket right now of it's an amazing opportunity opener, but we're still learning. And right now, making those quick decisions and making sure that we are taking action and not just trying to figure out everything about how we could possibly apply this here. You have to learn as you go. It is like the adage of building the airplane as you're flying it. You are constantly taking in input, using that to reevaluate your next step forward and moving forward in that way. Innovation is a very unforgiving timeline. It goes very quick. So you will be left behind if you're not moving quickly. And with that, it's a lot of small actions and small decisions.
Yeah, and I think, I do want to highlight that in your book, I mean, you talk about like, okay, how do you do the ideation? How do you come up, like the innovation, the idea? But what I like in your book is, you really then follow up with a whole bunch of lessons in terms of how do you move forward and how do you pivot? And so there's a lot of depth in terms of going, right from the ideation, which I think people, when they think of innovation, they're like, they focus and fixate on let's come up with a great idea, and they forget that they actually have to implement the idea. So I think you share a lot of lessons, which is fascinating because the WebEx hologram examples, I mean, the product's interesting and exciting and it's, in itself. So, and certainly, I mean, I did want to just, either you can maybe make people read the book, but Cake on Tuesday, I mean, I've read it, so I know what that refers to. Is that something that you would care to share with the audience where the title comes from, or do you want
I'd
to
love to make everybody read the book, but the really short snippet on there is a chapter in the book called Have Cake on Tuesday, and it is all based on the process of leading the WebEx hologram team and a multi-year journey to bring a crazy out there idea into the world. And Cake on Tuesday came from when we're getting into a certain portion of the project where we're past the exciting start. We were not yet to that satisfying conclusion. We're just making incremental improvements along the way. And we didn't have a big milestone to rally around. And for the team, we needed some motivation. So I was having a conversation with my amazing ops lead at the time. And she came up with this idea of making a Wheel of Fortune style Wheel of Winning. And we would just spin it at the end of our staff meetings. It had everybody's name on it. It was on the team. And if it landed on your name, then we would send you a cake. You would just get a cake, would show up at your door later that week. And it was a way to interject some fun and levity and a celebration into that barren middle, that slog along the way, if you will. And our staff meetings were on Tuesday, and that's where Cake on Tuesday came from.
Well,
that's really cool. I mean, finally, Elizabeth, with so many advancements happening across AI and tech, what technologies are you most excited about right now? And are there any particular innovations you think will have a game-changing impact on organizations in the near future?
So probably not the most exciting technology, but what I'm most excited about is things that add organization and structure. We're entering this era where we have access to more information than we have ever had. And with that, you get into complete information overload. So the ability to curate that information to what you need, make it accessible, make it easy to recall. Organization is such a big thing. I have 3 small children. Entropy is the natural state of every area of life. So I think as we get into these new technologies that give us more access to information, other tools that help curate and organize that are going to be huge, because it's no value having information that you cannot recall, find, organize, or move forward with. So that's what I'm most excited about.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Really, really good. Okay. Well, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. Kevin, Elizabeth, it's been great talking to you, and lots of highly valuable advice for our viewers. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for joining, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth's book, Cake on Tuesday, explores leadership, innovation, and personal growth through her journey leading a stealth startup inside of big tech. If you're interested in reading it, I'll put a link down below to find out more. And thanks to everyone for watching our AI show. If you've got some good takeaways from today's session, do give us a quick mention on social. You can connect with Kevin and myself on LinkedIn, and our links are in the description. I'm Rob Scott from UC Today. Thanks for watching.